Today on the show, we open up about archangels, our guardian angels, how to fight spiritual battles with them, a new abbey in California, and so much more. The Catholic Underground starts right now. Well, hello there. You've hit the play button on the Catholic Underground. We are the podcast cutting through the noise and bringing you the topics that matter. It's episode number 427. For those of you who are keeping score at home, I'm Father Chris Decker, a priest of the Diocese of Baton Rouge. Joining me this week, we've got Kathleen Lee. She's in a special place with a dark screen, but she's still here. Hey, Kathleen.
I'm here.
Also, we've got Olivia Gulino. She's here in the studio with me. Hey, Olivia.
Hello. I'm out of exiles this week.
That's true. You are. You are in exile. I don't know. I don't know what the opposite of. I guess the opposite of exile is just xyle. Yeah.
That sounds.
Also, we've got Albert Dupont. He is running the video or the audio there up in the Jeff Star 1 while Jeff is on the mend. And Ed Ball is in the ball pit running the video.
In the ball
so
pit.
If everything looks the way it's supposed to look, well then, that's Ed. That's Ed at work. That's right. Exactly. All right, I'm going to take just a moment for those of you who are watching on the radio and put my earpiece in because, you know, we're talking about a very interesting topic today in the world in which we find ourselves, and that has to do with battle. You know, because it can be pretty discouraging to look at television and social media, especially in an election season, because battle lines are drawn, right? And the claws are out, and everybody's kind of at everybody else's throat. But St. Paul reminds us that whenever we witness battle on earth, there's actually something else larger going on. And so if I may, right here at the top of the show, if I can break out the scriptures, St. Paul in his letter to the Ephesians chapter 6, beginning with verse 10, he says, "Finally be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his power. Put on the whole armor of God so that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil." And this is where he says, "For our struggle is not against enemies of blood and flesh, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers of this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places." So what he's saying is that as we kind of battle here on the earth, we have to deal with all of the issues of the spiritual battles taking place as well, because our souls hang in the balance. Mm-hmm. And that's why Paul is reminding us to put on the whole armor of God, right?
Yeah. And honestly, that kind of reminds me of, like, if you've ever read any of the epic poems, like Homer's Odyssey, mm-hmm. or the Iliad, or especially like the Iliad, because, I mean, that poem is like all about battle.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because, you know, you see the human characters who are fighting like on an actual battlefield on the ground, but then you also see like how the gods, because it's a Greek pagan inspired mm-hmm. myth or epic poem, but how like the gods themselves are like they're taking sides, and like
they pretty much hate each other all the time.
Yeah, they're always finding ways to like pick at each other.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because they'll take sides and they'll like use their particular like what we might call a patronage, mm-hmm. like to fight in the battle or to like make things worse for the other side or whatever. Yeah. And it's interesting because like there's part of that is a recognition of truth, right? Mm-hmm. That it's not just about this world, you know, like
there is a spiritual world, a spiritual realm, and there's a battle taking place there.
Yeah, and there's like influence back and forth, right?
Yeah.
It's like what happens in the spiritual world is not like divorced from what happens in the material world, because we are not just pure material, right? We are body soul composites, and so like we have interaction with both the material and the spiritual.
And that's why St. Paul tells us kind of flat out to take up the whole armor of God. He says, so that you may be able to withstand on that evil day, and having done everything to stand firm. And so the weapons, like the armor that St. Paul reminds us to have, is not just stuff that we possess here on earth, but some of it are supernatural gifts that are given to us. So he says, stand therefore with the belt of truth around your waist, the breastplate of righteousness, so right deeds, your shoes for your feet, put on whatever will make you ready to proclaim the gospel of peace. Notably that our feet are supposed to bring the good news. He says, with all of these, take the shield of faith. So if you think about it, like our faith as a shield, with which you will be able to quench all the flaming arrows of the evil one, the helmet of salvation, the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. And then he says to pray in the Spirit, to that end keep alert and always persevere in supplication for all the saints. So you've got like this rank of folks fighting with you. And naturally, like the show's about to go to air and 30 seconds, things start to break. Oh, yeah. But one of the things that we know is that in the midst of a spiritual battle, we aren't going in alone. And all of these armory items that we're called to put on are something that other actual beings wear for us as well. And so that's what we talk about the archangels today. So we thought we would give you a whole show talking about archangels and kind of the different nooks and crannies in which they appear in the scriptures and in our own history.
Yeah. And especially because the Feast of the Archangels is on Tuesday, right?
Yeah, it's coming up on the calendar. It's the 29th of September. Yeah. And Kathleen, originally that was the Feast of just St. Michael.
Right.
And now it is St. Michael and all the archangels, or the Feast of the Archangels.
Yeah. I think when we talk about like going to battle and what is this spiritual battle, I think a lot of people, especially, Olivia and I working with young people, they like this idea that the devil exists, that there are bad things in this world that we have to prepare, I think is like, oh yeah, okay, right. Like I tell people all the time I wanted to write my thesis in college on, and I think I've mentioned it here, that I wanted to write my thesis on the reality of Satan, right? And I wanted to talk about how, particularly how in our society, in our entertainment industry, how it seems so like when you watch a movie where there's an evil, entity or whatever, that they make it seem so sensationalized. Yeah. So much so that we're like, oh yeah. I was talking to my 6th graders last week about how we expect, the devil to come into the room, with a forked tongue and a long tail and 2 horns and announce himself. And he doesn't do that at all.
Very rarely anyway.
Right. But that what he does in the world is very real. And so when we look at this idea of how to prepare ourselves, how to go to battle, and, we're going to talk about the archangels, especially St. Michael, and his role in the battle, that is very real, and it's something that we need to be aware of, and not, of course, not to constantly live in fear and, anxiety, but to be prepared and to know what it is that we need to do to address the enemy that, doesn't always present himself as what we think, he should look like.
That's right. And I think that's, of course, why the Lord gives us, especially through the scriptures and the tradition of the church, the notion of these beings that fight alongside us, that actually have our back, that are go-betweens, if you will, between God and between us.
Yeah. And even just looking at the gifts that God is giving us to prepare, because like Kathleen, you were talking about, or as you were talking about, like how we prepare ourselves for that battle, I was thinking back to what Father Chris read from Ephesians, and I was struck by the fact that it's talking about the shield of faith. Well, faith is a gift that's given to us. It's also like a choice that I make, right? I have to choose to live a life of faith and to pursue that and to cooperate with that grace that's given to me in baptism and strengthening confirmation. But it is a gift, right? And then same with salvation, right? Salvation is something that is completely given to me, right? I can't earn that. I can't win that for myself. That's a gift. And so it's like God is preparing the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, right? That's God revealing himself to us, but it is a weapon against lies, right? It's a weapon against false truths.
Yeah, we often think about, I guess because we live in the world where everybody thinks of them as kind of self-made. If I'm going to make it, I've got to do it myself. Yeah. And oftentimes we forget that we are creatures, you know, and everything that we have is gift. Everything we have is a gift. And so God from the very beginning knows the difficulty we're going to have with original sin. Its effects are there. We can't escape the effects of original sin until the second coming, when when we experience a new heavens and a new earth. But we can begin to be prepared for it now, and we can begin to live in the kingdom of God as its subjects by the way in which we respond to the gifts that God has given us through the treasury of the church, and certainly through His direct action to us.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because like, I mean, I'm going back to this reading about like, in verse 13, Paul says to take up the whole armor of God. Like, so like we've been given some things are just kind of like natural to our humanity, like maybe the belt of truth, right? We strive for truth as human beings.
Right. It's kind of built in.
Yeah.
We have a hunger for it and a desire. Yeah.
But there are these other things that are given to me. But I have to put them on, like there is still my cooperation that is like required. But I think like you were saying that there's maybe a kind of expectation that I have to do everything myself.
Yeah.
And sometimes even if you can like tell people like, well, obviously like God is going to help us. Like God is never going to leave us alone. His promises to never leave us orphan, and he's given us everything that we'll need. Mm-hmm. But there can still be the temptation to be like, but is he really though?
Yeah.
Like, is he actually going to do that?
Yeah.
And so like that comes down to like, again, like the faith that shields us from that first initial lie. That's like, you can't, even if you put this stuff on, it's not going to protect you. Right. Yeah. Like even if you accept the gift that God's given you, that's not really going to protect you, but we can like trust that God is who he says that he is, and that he gives us all the help that we need. I often think about, when I read this from Ephesians chapter 6, that if you look at knights putting on armor in the medieval, like if you have medieval woodcuts and things like that, right, they're assigned a squire, right? And the squire's job is not only to make sure the horse has pasture, but also to like hand them the things to put on the actual pieces of armor so that they're ready to go into battle. Mm-hmm. Like even the strongest knight can't ready himself for battle. Oh, that's so interesting. And so for us, the angels who really kind of exist in a plane presently higher than ours, they willfully kind of make themselves our squires. Mm-hmm. They make themselves those who are willing to help us to be outfitted, even though they are heavenly beings. And so it really is quite something to think about, that St. Paul, as he's talking about putting on this armor so that we can fight these spiritual battles, there is a cooperation that takes place, you know, because a knight could always say, "Young squire, I do not wish for the helm now," you know, and yet there's that free choice that we all have, you know. Mm. Yeah, Kathleen, I know that especially now it's tough to deal with the spiritual battle that takes place in the world, because everything's coming at you from all different sides. Yeah, you know, and when we talk about the spiritual battle, you know, we talk about this often, that, you know, when we are caught up in it, even if we're doing the best that we can spiritually, you know, it can take a physical toll on someone. Yeah. And man, like when you start hurting, I don't know if anybody out there, you know, has ever experienced this. There's a point where you just get tired, and you're like, I don't want to, you know, I know several times as a teacher, you know, when it's gotten to a point where just all over the place in the classroom, in my personal life, in my physical, you know, being, it's just enough, you know, and you just want to, you know, I can imagine, you know, hearing stories about people who would go out to battle and they just lay down on the field and they're like, I'm done. Right. I don't want to do this anymore. Maybe if I play dead, the battle will happen around me. Yeah, you know, and sometimes that's definitely how you feel. It's just like, I'm going to, you know, I'm going to lay down like a toddler, right? I'm going to lay down and I'm just not going to do it anymore. And at some point, you know, you gotta get back up. There's nothing else you can do. And yet from that passivity, from that surrender, if you will, we allow the Lord to clothe us. Right. And I think that's anybody who's actually made it through half the year of 2020 knows exactly what you're speaking about, I think. Right. Right. Because we all have had those moments in the midst of dealing with the COVID. Right. That we really just say, Lord, I'm sitting in my house and I've been here for 2 or 3 months. Even though I'm safe, I got nothing left, right. You know? Yeah. And yet the Lord wishes to, even in those moments, clothe us, to reclothe us. You know, in the baptismal ritual, one of the very first things that happens after the baptism is a white garment is placed upon the child, right? Yeah. And see in this white garment the outward sign of your Christian dignity, namely that you have been changed. And this is kind of the beginning of showing the armor that you're supposed to bring unstained into everlasting life. Yeah. And I think I actually have meditated upon baptism a great deal over the course of all of this, because
I know, even as a priest, that I have had to reclaim, allow the Lord to clothe me once again in those baptismal garments that I do not despair. So yeah, that's very much the case. So we promised that we would talk to you about those who are going to help us. And so what we'll do is we're going to take a little bit of a pause just to remind you that we are the Catholic Underground. Oh yeah, we're the Catholic Underground. We're online at catholicunderground.com.org.tv and .live, I think, CUTV.live, if you want to join us that way. Yep. You can catch us on Facebook and on Roku and on Twitter, too. I think we stream on Twitter Sunday evenings, 7 p.m. Central Time. Or, of course, you can listen to us in podcast form, as many of you are doing. And for those of you who are watching us on the Catholic Faith Network and on Catholic TV, we're glad to have you along for the ride, and it sure is good to be back. I'm Father Chris, joined by Olivia here in the studio, and Kathleen in Studio B. Hi, Kathleen.
What's up?
Yeah, we're still trying to observe all the spacing and everything, you know? And then Albert is working the audio for us, and Ed is working their video as well. Oh, hi, Albert. Yeah, there he is. He's
such nice lighting.
Albert does have some kind of coffee house lighting.
Yeah, it's like a warm glow.
Mood lighting, yeah, because we had to bring his master light in for Kathleen so that we could make her
normal, beautiful self.
Yeah, that.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Amen. All right, so yeah, the archangels are the ones who kind of help us after we've been clothed with all of these gifts.
Yep.
It's the archangels that fight for us, on behalf of us, and even when we're not looking, they're always going into battle.
Yeah.
And so Kathleen's been doing a little work on, like, what does all this mean? Because we know that words have meaning, names have meaning.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it turns out the archangels have meaning.
Why do we call them archangels? What does that mean? That they were in the ark with Noah? No, it does not.
Different ark, right?
My little sixth graders.
I was about to say, you can tell you teach middle school when you say that.
Lord, yes, indeed. Yeah, so the word archangel is actually Greek from archangelos.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Hello. It means high-ranking angel, the same way that we use archbishop.
Yeah, sure.
So means a high-ranking bishop.
Like an actual arch, right? Like something that's overarching.
Yes.
Oh, I just defined by using the definition. Sorry. Keep going.
My seniors can tell you now that that's called circular reasoning.
Oh, well.
Y'all are fancy.
Oh,
yeah. Anyway, archangel.
Anyways, getting back. Now they are pure created spirits. They are created beings. We had a discussion about this in my class the other day. It's like, well, because we've been talking about creation and what did God create? And so of course, they raise their hands and they say, what did God create? Okay, yes, he did. The answer is yes. Is it created? Yes, he did. Does it exist? Then God created it. But they are pure created spirits. And while only Saint Michael is named an archangel specifically in Scripture, it's also common to honor Saint Gabriel and Saint Raphael as archangels as well. Mm-hmm. Now we can talk about this. I think Olivia, you and I can talk about this for days, but contrary to popular belief, angels are not human beings. Yes. And they never were human beings.
Yes. Say it again.
So, yes, angels are not human beings, and they never were human beings. Yeah. And so, although, we love to talk about our grandmothers, like there's a little fly, sorry. Like our grandmothers who have passed away, who are the sweetest of sweetest ladies and the most faithful people that we know, they do not die and go to heaven and then become angels. They don't gain wings. Angels are a different being all in and of itself.
Yeah. And that's a good thing. Like, I think maybe sometimes people feel like, well, that's not fair or something, but like, it's a good thing because we were created, like, you are a spirit as much, you are a body as much as you are a spirit, like we aren't meant to be like disembodied spirits. And so that's why we believe in the resurrection of the body. Like, we will have a glorified body one day in heaven in front of the face of God. But like, so it's a good thing that we are created according to our dignity, but like the angels are given to us to help us.
Right.
And like, but there is just a hierarchy of being, and it's not a bad thing. It doesn't make us like, dirty or like, oh, we're just these lowly earthly creatures. Like, no, like we're the height of God's like earthly creation. Yeah. And the angels, minister, right, to us on behalf of God. Like,
right.
It's not a bad thing that there's a difference there.
In fact, if you look like in the book of Daniel, whenever the angels are going up and going down, and he's able to see the line of ministry taking place. That's exactly what the angels do. And the thing about it is the way that God's creation is supposed to work is harmonious. In fact, it isn't until original sin that things become disharmonious, right? Or lack that harmony. And so you see with the angels, they are the ones who are kind of reestablishing that harmony by the work that they do.
Right.
And of course, we can even say that is where we talk about the fallen angels,
right.
Satan and all of the demons, all of those fallen angels were the ones who did not wish to serve in that manner, to bring humanity close to God.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's one of the like fundamental distinctions between human beings and angels is like we have a body and a spirit, right?
Yeah.
You are a body and a spirit. I don't want to say you have a body, but and so we like are constantly in what's like a state of becoming, right? Like we are constantly like becoming more perfect, becoming more of who we're created to be.
That's why Kathleen has to exfoliate.
Yes.
Because that's part of our becoming.
Yes, indeed.
Once a year, just to keep that glowy skin, unlike the rest of us.
Oh, Lord.
But angels, since they're pure spirit, like Kathleen said, they are pure will.
Yes.
Right.
So
they act.
Yeah. So whereas we make choices all the time, we are constantly trying to align our will and our passions and our emotions and all that.
Yeah.
And our intellect most of all. Angels had like one moment where they, and it's like simultaneous to the moment of their creation, that they had one moment to choose to serve God or not, right? And that's why you have a third of the angels that were considered fallen because of Satan's like non serviam, right? I will not serve.
Right.
But like that's the difference, right? And that's why the angel. I remember one of my students asked me one time, like, can the demons like become saved?
Oh, can they rehabilitate?
Yeah, like can they? And it comes from a place of compassion. So it's a good question because you want everyone to be saved, right?
Sure.
But the answer is no, right? Because like they've made their choice, and it's a final option.
And it's an infinite choice that they have made, you know, and that's why we realize all the more that the choices that we make as human beings, we have the ability, and thanks be to God, we do. We have the ability to turn back to the Lord, and then as we kind of drift, and sometimes even fall handily, we have the ability to turn back to the Lord. And the scriptures are, overwhelmingly attest to the fact that God wants to take us back.
Yeah.
Whereas, and that's because we are not pure act. There is potency in us. We are becoming. Whereas the angels, their choices are forever.
Right.
And that means that the place in which the fallen angels dwell is infinite, is going to continue along, you know.
Right.
And so all the more reason we need the archangels to help us to climb the ladder instead of fall off of it, so to speak.
Exactly. And there, as I was reading this, reading up on the angels, because angels are not something that we typically, I don't know, like I don't remember spending a lot of time learning about them. They're just
They just kind of lurk in the background of your catechism, right?
Yeah.
These beautiful things with wings and swords, and they come in when we need them, and that's that. But you would be surprised at how many times we talk about angels without maybe even recognizing that we do. Because there are 9 what we call choirs of angels that are listed in the Bible.
Yeah, they're ranks, right?
Right. And so in ascending order, I'm going to list them for you. Maybe you've heard some of these in some of our prayers and some of our songs, especially at Christmas time. But they are in ascending order: angels, archangels, principalities, powers, virtues, dominations.
Dominions.
Yep. Okay. Thrones, cherubim, and seraphim. Right. And so, so there is a vast multitude. We talk about there being this vast multitude of angels, of people. Of angels who are there, who are walking with us, who are fighting for us, who are have and will fight for us.
Yeah.
And so they're pretty awesome and pretty holy.
And if you're paying attention in Mass, for most of the prefaces, especially the older ones, so this is the part right before the Holy, 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 where we sing the hymn that the angels are singing, the priest will list all of those ranks at times, which is really, I always think about that as I'm praying it, that as I'm here at the altar, what I'm doing, in the same way that battles are spiritual as they are temporal, what's happening at the altar is spiritual as it is temporal. And so as I'm offering these gifts and I'm inviting everybody to sing the thrice holy hymn, the angels are doing the exact same thing. And so we're recalling that reality is happening.
Right. Yeah. And so, when we come back, we're going to talk about specifically some that we call saint. But just real quickly, why do we call angels saints?
Yeah, like Saint Gabriel. We talk about that, right? Yeah.
Now, the word saint comes from the Greek meaning holy one.
Yeah, hagios.
Right. And I didn't think about this, but it doesn't mean holy human being.
Yeah.
When we think about that a lot, there are human beings that go through a process of becoming a saint. And there's a whole process, and it's beautiful and awesome. But I don't really think of saints being other things beside human beings. But that word saint doesn't qualify. It doesn't qualify it as being human beings. And so we honor Saint Gabriel, Saint Raphael, and Saint Michael because they're holy, because they side with God.
Yep.
Right? And all angels, and there are many that side with God, are considered holy. But these are the three that we know that are named. Yeah. And so if we knew the names of other angels, because they would side with God, those who did side with God, we would also consider them saints because they are a holy one.
Yep.
Because they chose, as we were saying, they chose to side with God.
Which is exactly, we who have yet to go through the canonization process, perhaps one day, we can be even called holy now. Like whenever you see your grandma who is always just wanting to do the right thing and to do the good, we call her holy because we know she's set apart for God, because that's the way that she's living her potential. She's living completely acting in that way. Kathleen, you hear the music. I hear the music.
I do.
Yeah, that means we got to take a little bit of a break, but stay right there because the Catholic Underground is coming back right after this. Hail, Holy Queen, Mother of Mercy, our life, our sweetness, and our hope. To thee do we cry, poor banished children of Eve. To thee do we send up our sighs, mourning and weeping in this valley of tears. Turn then, most gracious Advocate, thine eyes of mercy towards us, and after this our exile, show unto us the blessed fruit of thy womb, Jesus. O clement, O loving, O sweet Virgin Mary. It is the Catholic Underground. You found us, you're listening to us, or you're watching us, or maybe you're just having a dream about us. I'm Father Chris Decker, joined by Olivia Gulino here in the studio, and Kathleen over in Studio B. And we fixed her pretty pictures and everything for those of you listening on the radio or on podcasts, so she's just as radiant as ever.
Oh, thanks.
You'll have to take our word for it if you're listening. She's fantastic.
Exactly. Listen to the dulcet tones of her voice,
That's
and then
right.
you'll know.
Yes, the well-practiced public radio tones of Kathleen.
Welcome to my charcuterie board.
That's a whole nother episode. Albert is running the audio in the place of Jeff, who's convalescing, and we've also got Ed, who's running the video for us as well. So we've been talking about the fact that the spiritual battle is real, y'all. We've been talking about the fact that angels are sent to help us and to be messengers. And we talked a little bit about the ranks of the angels. So now let's dive in and talk about the big three.
Yeah.
The big three of the rank of archangels.
The carrots, onions, and celery of the gumbo of angels.
Oh, wow. That's
I don't know.
quite a simile.
I like that a lot.
Kathleen does like that because it's one of those food-based metaphors that we can
Fall's
just
coming. We can talk
lean
about
right in.
gumbo now.
We can. That's true. That's right. Gumbo is the pumpkin spice of Louisiana.
That's
right?
true. That is true.
Except better. Thank you very much.
That
Sorry,
is
New
true.
England. But
sure.
at any rate, so there are three specific archangels that show up all throughout the scriptures, and that's Saint Gabriel, Saint Raphael, and Saint Michael. So we thought we'd spend some time here towards the bottom of the show talking about who they are, what they do, and why you should care.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like with most names in the Bible, the names of the angels are going to tell you about who they are.
Yeah.
But also names are very important. So when it comes to the angels, it should strike us as really significant that we only know the names of 3 archangels, and technically, I mean, we know Lucifer's name.
Yeah, true.
But and actually, like, you know, he was one of the, like, you know, upper crusty
he was
angels.
a high tier, yes.
Yeah, he's a cherubim, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. So
reaching way back for that one, but
yeah,
I think so.
I'm pretty sure he was. But anyway, but it's significant that we only know the names of 3, and sometimes you'll see like people saying, well, in some like apocryphal literature, there's like a list of 7, or like maybe you've seen like a 4th name for an archangel, Uriel. But as, you know, interesting as those things might be to read, since the canon of scripture, the books that are in our sacred scriptures, since that God guided the process not only of writing them, but also of putting them together and deciding what goes in and what is left out. Yeah. We know that these can be trusted, right? That these are the names that we know, we can be assured. The other ones we can't.
Right.
So it's really not the best kind of practice to like go searching for the names of other angels.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, in 2001, the Congregation for Divine Worship and the Discipline of the Sacraments issued what's called the Directory for Popular Piety. Yeah. And popular piety are the different devotions that just about everybody engages in their prayer. And so they said that it's not a good idea to name your guardian angel. Yeah. It's certainly not a good idea to ask the name of your guardian angel, but the church does say we are discouraged from assigning or ascertaining names of holy angels with the exception of 3. St. Michael, St. Gabriel, and St. Raphael, whose names have been revealed to us in the scriptures. And we might talk about that in a little bit, but let's dig in. So St. Gabriel, of course, God is my strength.
My strength, yeah. And he's maybe, if you think about the archangels, maybe you kind of toddle between like him and St. Michael is the one you think about the most. Right. But Gabriel is at some really significant moments. And so we, like Kathleen was saying, we hear about him a lot, especially around like Advent and Christmas. And so he appears biblically 3 times as a messenger. And remember, that's like what the word angel, angelos, means in Greek. It means a messenger. So he's going to bring not only news, but good news. Yep. And so first of all, he gets sent to Daniel to explain a vision concerning the Messiah, right? So he's already telling about the coming of Jesus deep in the Old Testament. He also appears to Zechariah to foretell the birth of John the Baptist, right? Which we kind of forget about because...
Yeah, that's one of my favorite instances because Gabriel kind of gives a mini penance. Yeah. In the midst of that, if you remember the story, right? Zechariah is kind of disbelieving. He's like, I don't know about all this. Yeah. I know my wife Elizabeth. She's very old. I'm very old. How is this going to happen? I don't know. And so he's muted briefly. Yeah. And then, like, he has this wonderful, like, proclamation of faith, like, after John the Baptist is born, but he is kind of, like, chastised for his unbelief. And it's interesting because the third time Gabriel appears, it's to Mary at the Annunciation. And essentially, he's saying something very similar, right? He wasn't proclaiming the coming of the Messiah with John the Baptist, but the prophet that's going to precede the Messiah. But Zechariah and Mary both ask a question that's similar, right? Like, how can this be? Except for the fact that Zechariah asked out of doubt, right? Like, that can't be true. So, like, explain yourself. But Mary asked out of faith, but she just wanted to know how it would be possible. Because she had I believe what God wants to do. But I don't understand. Which is a very different place. And of course, that's an important point of reflection for us, is that when the Lord asks something of us, can we respond out of doubt? Yeah, but can we also respond out of faith? Yeah. And that's part of the armor of God, right, is being able to respond with the gift of faith. Yeah. And I mean, like, the point of the message, right, or Gabriel as the messenger is, again, to, like, bring them closer to God, right? And so Mary, being full of grace, not full of, all of the intellectual, like, background knowledge of everything that she's going to experience, but being full of grace didn't need as much of that kind of help as Zechariah did. So, like, part of the message was, okay, well, you're going to be quiet and think about this for a nice solid 9 months. How does that sound? That's right. I like the idea of Zechariah being muted because I think about myself, and whenever I respond in doubt, I deserve to be muted for a little while so that I can reflect. Yeah. It's usually when I need to go on retreat. So I guess I am muted then.
Yeah. That's true. Silent retreat. So some of the symbols you might see associated with St. Gabriel are the scepter, the lily, a shield, a scroll with the Ave Maria Gratia Plena. Or
it's interesting
Hail Mary, full of
that
grace.
he carries stuff that's used by the other, right, by the human beings oftentimes.
Yeah.
And the only thing that I know that I've seen him with, besides the lantern, right, is the trumpet.
Yeah, the trumpet.
He's often shown with the trumpet.
Yeah, and this is kind of a tangent, but I saw something recently, like apparently in physics, there's a phenomenon known as St. Gabriel's trumpet or St. Gabriel's horn, and it's
I've heard about that.
Yeah, it's some kind of like paradox of physics. Anyway, you can look that up. That's as much as I can tell you about it.
That's a Googleable thing. Yeah.
But anyway, so even the archangels, since they are considered to be holy ones, they have a hagiography, right? A way of identifying them in art, in literature, and things like that.
Yeah.
And so St. Gabriel is the patron saint of broadcasters. Hello. Because he is, the one who trumpets, who announces these great messages.
In fact, the Emmy Award, basically, for Catholic broadcasters from the Catholic Press Association is the Gabriel Awards. And it's a statue of Gabriel, which, by the way, we haven't won one yet. But
we're open to it.
Yeah.
So
I guess we actually have to submit one of our programs.
I love it.
Maybe this will be the one. I don't know. Yeah.
So I'll give it like a nice little wink that they can just like put a little sparkle on later.
That's right.
He's also considered a patron saint of radio workers for the same reason. Clergy.
Yep.
Hello. Because how much are y'all?
Because we have to blow the trumpet a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also postal workers, stamp collectors, right?
That's right. Carrying messages.
Yeah.
Right.
And then one of my favorites, it's hard to pick favorites, but I do love St. Raphael.
Yeah. He's perhaps one of the unsung archangels.
He is, because he's kind of one of those like the things that you do read about him, you're like, what? Like he's a little bit odd, a little bit hipster.
Yeah. Okay. I get.
So like you can see where there might be an appeal there for me. Anyway, but his name means God has healed, which like if that doesn't just like slap you in the forehead, I don't really know what will. But we hear about him only once in the book of Tobit, but he's a pretty central figure in that book.
One of my favorite books of the Old Testament.
Yeah. It's one of the biblical novellas. So it's kind of like if we're like want to take a break from all the like drudgery that might be happening in the Old Testament with all the idolatry and everything, like you can kind of pop out the book of Tobit. It's like a dream sequence almost.
It's true.
But it's like telling a story of something that happened, but it's still a little bit of a different genre than the rest of the book. But basically, he accompanies Tobias on his journey to go meet his wife, Sarah, who is being plagued by a demon. And
not only is she being plagued by the demon, but all of her would-be suitors, all those who are trying to say, I'd like to marry you. Yeah,
because they dying.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I don't know. Now that like I'm engaged, I can imagine like the terror. not that I like I am experiencing that in any way, but like Kathleen, like, can you imagine like having the fear of like, well, I'm gonna marry this guy and he might die.
I'm just gonna kill another one.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But that's the level of demonic activity too, is to take somebody who's trying to do the right thing and just continue to torment them.
Yeah.
And so Raphael appears as Tobias is on his journey.
Yeah.
And he kind of outfits him for what's coming next. He outfits him for the journey of casting out these demons.
Yeah, and he kind of foresees like if the story is a chess match, he's foreseeing several steps ahead because he even like plans for the healing of Tobit, who's gone blind.
Yep.
And from a really gross reason, but anyway, like he's gone blind, and so he even like is preparing Tobias to like aid in that healing too, but especially in the healing of Sarah from this torment. And again, like kind of in a weird way because it involves like fish innards.
It does. Yeah, fish juice.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, if you mix this fish juice and you burn this sort of thing, it's going to make a stink so bad that the demon is going to go away. And that's exactly what happens in the scriptures. Again, the book of Tobit, if you haven't read it, for those of you who might be watching or listening who are not Catholic, go and find what you would call the Deuterocanonicals, the Apocryphals, and then read the book of Tobit. You'll be hooked, and you'll be wondering why those things were left out taken out of the Bible
Exactly.
in the first place. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got some of those symbols, a staff, because he's another patron of travelers, like
Yep.
St. Christopher that we talked about recently, the wallet and fish. He's also a patron of people preparing for marriage or
Yep.
people looking to find a holy spouse. So definitely a saint to have in your kind of arsenal,
Mm-hmm.
if you will. And then obviously a major saint to have in your arsenal is St. Michael.
Yep.
So we're going to talk about Michaelmas in just a little bit, but Michael's name is who is like God, right?
Yeah,
Not
it's
in
a question.
Not in the sense of
Yeah.
like, like tell me who God is, but
who else is like God?
Yeah.
Who is like unto God except God?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and the implied answer being no one.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Well, and like the legend is, or I don't know, it seems wrong to call it a legend, but like that was his response to Lucifer saying non serviam, right? I will not serve. His response was, who is like God, right?
Yeah,
Like who
yeah.
else, where are you going to go to
Yeah.
find a master greater than the Lord? And so
The answer is hell, and he's not there either. God is still God.
Yeah, exactly. And so St. Michael, he's the prince of the heavenly host. So like all of the kind of warriors for Christ. So since we are part of the church militant, if you're confirmed, you are full-fledged member of the church militant, then St. Michael is like our battalion leader.
That's right.
You know?
He's the principal, right? The principality that's kind of constituted of us, if you will,
Yeah.
of those fighting in the church militant are spearheaded by Saint Michael.
Yeah, and so you're going to see him kind of dressed for battle. So he might
Very
be
often.
wearing like in actual armor, carrying a sword, most definitely.
Yeah, in the brosifying of society, Saint Michael, like a jacked Saint Michael, is a thing now.
Oh yeah,
You know,
Well,
you
especially
see
like
a lot of these strong Saint Michael types.
like tiny head Saint Michael, but like big bicep. You know what I'm talking about? Like
Yeah.
sometimes you see him in art and you're just like, how is that physically possible that his head is that small compared to like his shoulders? But yeah, because they're trying to emphasize his strength, right?
Yeah,
his
right.
his not just, I mean, like he said, doesn't have a physical body, but like
But his
his
spiritual
force
strength,
in battle. So yeah, he's the patron saint of people who are experiencing temptations, right? So that's why we pray the Saint Michael prayer, one of the reasons. But he's also a patron saint of artists, of bakers.
Yep.
I found this out a few years ago and was super fascinated by that because I bake a lot. But also people who are working like EMT, emergency medicine, fencing. If you make hats, are you a police officer?
I didn't know that a haberdasher had
Yeah.
Saint Michael as his patron. That's interesting.
Yeah, he's got tons of patronages. And again, I think that goes back to like his status as the prince of the heavenly host, right?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
he's going to be able to help you in a lot of different battles.
Oh, that reminds me. If you go to joecatholic.com, I have, way back in 2007, I did an info sheet on Archangels
Oh, yeah.
for a publication called The Cappadocian in Canada.
Oh, that's so
And
cool.
so if I still have it. So if you go to joecatholic.com, you can look it up, joecatholic.com/archangels. And it has some of the information that we're talking about, well, right now, as a matter of fact.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's really cool to think about the fact that we have these intercessors for us that aren't just kind of, interceding in a esoteric kind of can't touch it kind of way.
Yeah.
But rather they are actually going into battle for us, and not just in like we would kind of think like in a Lord of the Rings type of thing. But think about like Tobit's situation where he himself had fallen ill, and he himself wanted to do the right thing. In fact, the prayer of Tobias is fantastic.
Oh,
by
yeah.
the way, if you've never read that in the book of Tobit, the prayer of Tobias and Sarah, he needed to be outfitted for a very particular type of battle, for righteousness, for right acting, and so he was healed. And he therefore then was able to go and be a source of healing for this woman who would become his wife.
Yeah.
And so it's not just those battles, perhaps against the temptations of the flesh, which are, I mean, a dime a dozen here in the world. But think about some of those other ways in which, I mean, even hearing bad news, right? Being a recipient of bad news or of difficult news, or maybe of being in the doldrums. Saint Gabriel is there to fight on your side as well,
Yeah.
to help your ears to receive good news, the good news that God wishes to bring.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Because
I often don't think about that. I think of
Yeah.
Saint Michael, who is, again, kind of the prince of the archangels.
Yeah. But I mean, think about it. You gotta have to like clear the threshold of the coming like onslaught of temptations in order to be able to like hear the truth, to know
Yeah.
what's real. So yeah, they all are kind of like fighting in unison for you and with you.
That's true.
That's
yeah.
awesome.
I guess we should talk quickly about Saint Michaelmas. Of course, Michaelmas is like Michael's Mass, right?
Yeah.
So like Christmas, yeah. St. Michael's Mass is now called a Feast of the Holy Archangels because it includes Gabriel and Raphael as well. But of course, Kathleen, traditionally, it was Michael's Day.
Yeah. And now he shares it.
Now he shares it.
There are definitely ways that we can celebrate, which is pretty cool. That's what I love about our faith is it's like, hey, let's celebrate something. Let's eat some food.
Yeah, and we do.
Let's do some things. Like there are very specific things we can do. And one of them that I found is that there is a legend of the blackberries. Now, what I also love about the feast and the of our church is that they often fall around certain times in the liturgical calendar, what's going on in the world. And so there's actually a legend about the blackberries. And the legend goes that when St. Michael threw Satan out of heaven, as described in the book of Revelation, the devil landed on a blackberry bush, and which he then spit on and cursed, because I would imagine it's not very comfortable to land on a blackberry bush. Therefore, blackberries are to be picked, or were to, in the tradition, were to be picked and eaten by Michaelmas, or before the devil gets a chance to spit on them.
Wow.
So you can treat your friends to a blackberry wine, or yourself to blackberry wine. You can put fresh blackberries on your oatmeal. You can bake them in a pie or a cobbler, or you can top your angel food cake with some fresh blackberries. Yes, indeed. You can also feast in other different ways. A traditional why is that so hard to say? Michaelmas
You got it. There you go.
Includes, get it, roasted goose.
Wow.
And carrots.
Why don't we celebrate this? What the
Both
heck?
of which.
I don't think I've ever had roasted goose.
Me neither, but look, I'm about to get on it. These are both in season in late September in Great Britain, which is where this tradition comes about. If you don't have a goose just laying around, maybe you make yourself and your family a roasted chicken, or whatever other
little baby
foul animal that you have laying about. So, in the British Isles, this is where the goose came about. They would roast a goose for prosperity. Now in France, they celebrate by making waffles.
How very French.
Love it.
I'm all about that. Thank you.
And in Scotland, they have what's called St. Michael's
bannock,
which is a large scone-like cake.
Father Kevin, I wish to have St. Michael's bannock when I come to visit you.
Yes, indeed.
When we all come to visit.
Oh, right, and it'll be a Catholic Underground trip. So
yes.
Get
anyway,
the pub ready.
Moving on. In my favorite place that I'm pretty sure doesn't actually exist because I haven't been there, in Italy, gnocchi is the traditional fare, which is one of my absolute favorites. You can also celebrate by thanking a police officer who is whose patron saint is St. Michael, or any other emergency worker. You can display a St. Michael prayer card somewhere prominent in your home, and to pray the St. Michael prayer, maybe at the beginning of the day and throughout the day. And attend Mass if you can. That's always a good thing to do to celebrate the feast. Now, there are also ways that you can celebrate St. Raphael and St. Gabriel. In honor of St. Gabriel, why don't you maybe, if you haven't already, learn the Angelus, right, and recite it daily. You can recite it at the 6 and 12 hours. 6, noon, and 6, right? Or for St. Raphael, maybe you get familiar with the book of Tobit and read that one place in the scripture where he is found.
That's right. And by the way, if you wonder why at your local church parish the bells ring at 6 in the morning, at noon, and at 6 in the evening, that's why, because you're like, oh, what's happening? And those are really long rings. It's because that's called the Angelus bell, and it's to remind you to stop what you're doing, to pause, and to recite the Angelus.
I love that.
Yeah, I try to. I have to turn the 6 a.m. bells down because they're digital. So they're kind of on a lower. But noon and 6, they ring out, baby. So In fact, that's usually my reminder that I need to be up. Because if the Angelus bells are ringing at 6 in the morning and I'm not doing something, or praying the Angelus, then I'm asleep and I shouldn't be. Yeah. We thought that as we round third base here on the Catholic Underground, we would maybe start doing a little rotating segment that I like to call the monastery down the road.
Love it.
Because in the United States, most especially, and in your own township, sometimes there are houses of monks and nuns and religious sisters that maybe you don't even know about. For example, St. Michael's Abbey, which is in California.
Wow.
And so if you happen to find yourself in Silverado, California, driving on El Toro Road, then you might find yourself at St. Michael's Abbey. St. Michael is an abbey of Norbertine fathers. And so you can look up a little bit more on the Norbertines. They're a 900-year-old order, and they have an abbey out there in Orange County that has nearly 50 priests and over 30 seminarians studying for the priesthood. So that is a pretty vibrant thing. Mm-hmm. And if you're watching us on the podcast, you can see that they have just finished a $120 million building project in March of 2018 to build this beautiful Romanesque abbey church in which to pray and offer the sacrifice of the Mass. Because as you know, what monks do is they organize their day around prayer. And so if you go to St. Michael's, they have public, well, whenever you're not in the middle of a COVID, they have public liturgies. And so you can go to matins and lauds. So those are the first 2 hours of the day. You can go to Mass. You can go to Terce Sexta Non, which are the next 3 hours of the day. They have a rosary, they have Vespers, which is evening prayer. They have a Eucharistic Holy Hour, they have Compline, which is night prayer, and then benediction at the end of that. So they have an entire day. This is every day in the Rota for the Norbertines there at St. Michael's Abbey. And of course, we showcase St. Michael's Abbey because, well, it's named after St. Michael the Archangel, you know?
Yeah.
And so St. Michael's Abbey actually has been around for more than 50 years. And they've served the Christian faithful in Southern California, doing what Pope St. John Paul II asks, to lift high the Holy Eucharist over the miseries and errors of this world. And the monks there, the Norbertines, the Norbertine fathers, I should say the canons, right? They have specific outreaches there in California. So they have teaching religious education in prisons, serving as chaplains to colleges. They serve as chaplains in the military. They serve as chaplains to communities of religious women. But then they all find their life in common life there at the Abbey, praying every day and living as brothers. And so what a really cool thing. I like the fact that their priests teach in schools and they operate in parishes, and some of them are pastors of parishes as well. That's kind of cool.
I was just thinking about how that is sorely, I think, missed in our Catholic school system.
Oh yeah, the presence of religious.
Yeah. Whereas, sadly, one of my elementary school principals, Sister Johan, just passed away. And I was like, man, it has been so long since I have not worked as a Catholic school teacher under any religious as a principal. It's been so long since I've seen them in the classroom that, I wish we had more people who answered the call to vocations that would allow that presence to be there. That would be
and I think too that's why maybe this segment is important, is because oftentimes whenever a person is thinking about a vocation, thinking about the diocesan priesthood, and women just like, well, what is there for me? Right. And so this is an important concept for us to kind of rediscover, that we are called to look at the fact that these cycles of prayer are happening every day, and then you might be called to join in that as well as a member of a religious. Because I think one of the unfortunate things that has happened in the last 75 years is that we have lifted up the lay vocation almost to a degree that we don't see the vocation of these men and women religious who are oftentimes functioning in the background, but they still need vocations. And especially in the active orders like the Norbertines and like the Sisters of St. Joseph and some of these more active religious orders of women, it is so important that they have a vibrancy, because they can teach in parishes and they can teach in schools in a way even that perhaps the lay can't quite do. Because a religious man or a religious woman, this is part of what they do every day. It's part of
Yeah.
their cycle of prayer. It's part of the way in which they glorify God.
Yeah.
Right.
Not that the lay aren't supposed to do that. You are. In fact, if you read the document on the laity in the Second Vatican Council, you have your part to play. But I often wonder, like, what happened where the religious kind of all of a sudden they're not readily apparent to us.
Yeah.
Whereas for many, many tens of years, especially in our own United States, it was nothing to see a religious sister walking on the sidewalk, you know, going to the supermarket
Everywhere.
or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think now, like, the danger is it becomes more of an idea.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we know
Yeah.
it only in
Gee,
like
that's
the
nice.
abstract, only in like a concept. Like, I know there's these things called,
Yeah.
you know, religious
But they're like
priests and
angels. They
women.
just appear.
Yeah.
And then they,
And it's like it becomes less of like a reality or less of a possibility,
That's right.
like for, you know, our lives, or like even just things that we're going to experience.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. But remember, we priests are not angels. We are priests. We are human beings. And a religious sister is not an angel. She is a woman. And a Norbertine friar or a father is a human being.
Right.
And that comes from the rank of humanity, right? The us, the church militant. And that's part of the way in which the Lord calls us. So maybe you might be called to be part of the Norbertines there at St. Michael's Abbey. I'm sure that if you visit their website, which, by the way, let me just look it up here, is stmichaelsabbey.com, then you might be able to find out some more information. We'll make sure we put that in the show notes for you as well. All right. Well, this has been a program on archangels and probably a little bit more. And we hope that it was helpful for you. You know, we're trying out a kind of a new little rundown, the way that we do some of our shows, and to give you some more themes because some of you have asked us to do that. And so if this is beneficial for you, please let us know. You can let us know backchat@catholicunderground.com or go to catholicunderground.com and leave us a little note there because you can do so, or, of course, in the comments section on any of our live streams. As always, the Catholic Underground is made possible by the viewers, the listeners, the prayer warriors, the benefactors like you. If you want to become an official undergrounder, you can go to catholicunderground.com/donate and help us to continue to bring the work of this apostolate to the fore to everyone who needs it. You can also help us out by letting other people know about us. Remember to like us and heart us and star us on your platform of choice. And if the podcasting service that you use to listen to us has a review option, please consider leaving a favorable comment, and we might just read it on the show. Just like we would do with any backchat at catholicunderground.com.
We like mail.
We do like to receive mail. All right, our panelists have been Kathleen Lee. She's at KLee626 on Instagram. Thank you, Kathleen.
Anytime.
We've also had Olivia Gulino join us. She's at the.real.omg on Instagram and Twitter. Thank you, Olivia.
It's true, yeah. Thank y'all.
Yep. As well as Albert Dupont, who I don't even remember what your handles are on the Twitters.
W5 Video.
W5 Video for Albert. Yep. And Ed, who has no social media, is our video director. Jim Hayes is our research assistant and the leader of the crew in the lab. And you know me, I'm Father Chris Decker. You can find me at Digital Catholic on Instagram and on Twitter. And Inktober is coming up. So I'm just saying.
Yes.
And I'm planning on jumping in. So yeah, if you want to subscribe to Digital Catholic on Instagram, I'll be doing Inktober. There you go. All right. If you've been listening to the Catholic Underground, we're cutting through the noise. You can find that still small voice. We hope we've helped you, and we'll see you next time.
From the Catholic Underground.